Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. If you enjoyed today's video, please show your support by hitting that like button and don't forget to tune into the PlayStation podcast every Sunday at 7 PM. So Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox, but the real question is, will Xbox gamers actually buy the game? So big news dropped recently, Helldivers 2 officially coming to Xbox Series X and S on August the 26th, 2025. This marks a significant moment for both PlayStation and Xbox gamers, and naturally it stirred up a lot of discussion, especially around one key question: will Xbox players actually buy this game? You see, here's the thing, Helldivers 2 will not be included into Game Pass. That means Xbox players will have to pay full price, that's $40 or £40 for the game, just like PlayStation and PC players did. And if we're being honest, there's a bit of a pattern when it comes to third-party or even exclusive games not launching on Game Pass. They often struggle to sell on Xbox. Some just don't get the traction they deserve without the added visibility Game Pass provides. Now let's add some context here. This move isn't totally out of left field. Helldivers 2 has been a massive hit since it launched on PlayStation and PC, quickly becoming one of Sony's fastest selling games ever. It's been praised for its exciting co-op gameplay, intense combat and over-the-top action that keeps players coming back for more. In fact, it was so well received that it earned a 9 out of 10 rating from many outlets. That kind of momentum doesn't go unnoticed, and Xbox fans noticed it too, and they started to speak out. There were online petitions, community campaigns, and a growing demand for Helldivers 2 to be ported over to Xbox. Arrowhead Studios, the developers behind the game, responded to these requests with cautious optimism. They didn't make any promises, but they did make it clear and indicated that if Sony and Xbox could come to some kind of an agreement, they'd be open to making that happen. Well, it looks like those conversations between the two platform giants did take place, and more importantly, they have reached a deal. The porting process is being handled by Nixxes, a trusted Dutch studio known for high quality ports, and even though PlayStation is publishing the game on Xbox, which is pretty rare in itself, it does show how much faith they have in the potential of the game to succeed across platforms. But that brings us back to the big question: will Xbox players actually buy this game? That's hard to say. On one hand, Helldivers 2 isn't just a one and done experience, it's a live service multiplayer game, meaning that its success depends heavily on the number of active players. The more people playing, the more content that gets developed, the bigger the community grows, and the more money it can generate, especially from in-game purchases and microtransactions, which make up a large part of its revenue model, of course, and the initial price to buy the game. So from a business standpoint, Sony expanding this game to Xbox does make sense. They've probably done the math and decided that opening up more players is worth more than the short-term loss of exclusivity, particularly as previous live service games that Sony has tried to develop have pretty much all failed. It's not a bad move if it pays off, but timing is everything, and this announcement comes at the moment when Xbox is dealing with some pretty tough headlines right now. The platform recently went through another round of layoffs, and its market share is reportedly shrinking. In that environment, launching a game without Game Pass support feels risky. Xbox users are used to getting new titles through their subscription, so how many will actually shell out 40 quid for a game that's already been out for over 18 months elsewhere? Still, PlayStation isn't exactly new to this cross-platform approach. A few years ago, they brought MLB The Show to Xbox too, but that was a move pushed by MLB itself, not Sony's own initiative. And we've seen more recently where we've seen them test out the waters with Lego Horizon Adventures on Nintendo Switch, which didn't go down too well. The game apparently didn't sell very much, but it is a sign that they are open to getting their franchises in front of a broader audience. But even that game, Lego Horizon Adventures, some say was instigated and pushed by Lego or its parent company and not directly by Sony. So Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox isn't just about this one game. It might be the start of a wider shift in strategy, especially when you consider what other live service games might follow. Could we see the upcoming Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls go multi-platform eventually? We know Marathon will be cross-platform multi-plat game, but what about Horizon's live service game set in the Horizon universe? Will that be multi-plat? Probably. The logic makes sense. Multiplayer games thrive when as many people as possible are playing them, so expanding beyond PlayStation's walled garden could help keep these games alive for much longer. But what about the single-player experiences? Games like Marvel's Spider-Man 2 or the upcoming Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, wouldn't they also benefit from bigger audiences on other consoles or PC? That's where things get a little bit tricky. Herman Holtz, the head of PlayStation Studios, recently said that Sony needs to be thoughtful about when and how it brings its games to other platforms. Right now, their approach seems to be releasing major single-player games first on PlayStation as exclusive games, and then bringing them over later on to PC, sometimes even years later. That strategy hasn't changed yet. But with the PlayStation 6 era looming and more games already going multi-platform, and with Xbox seemingly exiting the hardware space, Sony is walking a fine line right now. They keep saying that PlayStation is the best place to play, but that becomes harder to believe when the same games are showing up everywhere else, not much longer after launch. So what does this all mean in the long term? For now, Helldivers 2 is just one game, but it's also a test. If it does well on Xbox, we could see more PlayStation titles follow. If it flops, especially without Game Pass backing, it might make Sony think twice about going cross-platform with future projects. Either way, it's clear that the gaming industry is changing massively. I've always maintained that live service and multiplayer games, to be honest, I don't really care what platforms they're on. I don't play live service and multiplayer games that often, but those kind of games, they need online players. Therefore, it makes sense for them to go to different platforms or even every platform. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. They just need a volume of players to buy into their microtransactions, their DLC, and all the other kind of stuff that you get with live service games. But if you start to make your single player games available for all platforms, you lose that quintessential USP that your platform has to offer, that value proposition, the reason why people buy your platform, the brand value, that all diminishes. Sony needs to ensure their flagship single player games remain exclusive, or I fear they will go the way of the Xbox. I mean, think about it, right? If the console or hardware didn't matter, let's just forget console exclusivity for the purpose of this exercise, and you imagine you could buy any game on any platform. Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, whatever the platform, you can buy any game on any platform. Most people, I feel, would end up buying a PC for the best gaming performances and a handheld, like a Nintendo, for the gaming on the go. And if you did want to play games in the living room or have that couch environment experience, then it'll be a toss-up between Xbox and PlayStation hardware. So that's why I think Sony will never allow their exclusive single-player games to be multi-plat, because when they're exclusive, the only place you can play those single-player games is on a PlayStation console to start with. That's why Sony will not allow those games on every platform. But we do know they will go to PC at some point. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's move on. The Last of Us has become one of the most acclaimed video game to TV adaptations we've seen over the recent years, especially with the success of Season 1. However, Season 2 struggled to live up to expectations. And now we have two senior execs at the HBO show leaving the show. Haley Gross, who worked as a co-writer alongside Neil Druckmann, and Craig Mazin, has confirmed that she is stepping away from the show. In an Instagram post, she called her experience working on the series life-changing and praised the cast and crew for their dedication in telling stories about love and loss and what it means to survive in a harsh post-apocalyptic world. Now, Gross isn't just a scriptwriter, she was also the narrative lead behind The Last of Us Part 2, which makes her departure pretty significant. Her exit comes not long after Neil Druckmann, co-creator of both the game and the TV show, also announced that he's leaving the show's production team. Druckmann said the timing made sense with Season 2 now wrapped and no active development yet started for Season 3. He's shifting his full focus back to game development at Naughty Dog Studios, where he's been part of the team for more than 20 years. Druckmann described working on the HBO series as a career highlight. He directed episodes in both seasons and played a key role in making sure the TV version stayed true to the spirit of the games. But now he's moving on to work on new projects, including a mysterious PS5 title called Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, which he is writing and directing, and he's also involved in producing another unannounced AAA PlayStation 5 game from the studio, which some are saying could be the Uncharted reboot or a continuation of the Uncharted games. To be honest, I'm glad Druckmann is back focusing on game development at Naughty Dog. I'd rather he focus on the task at hand and ensure both the Heretic Prophet and the other AAA project that he's working on are not only delivered well, but once again set the bar in terms of game development. Guys, let's move on to something a lot more chaotic, and that is the ongoing meltdown happening at Builder Rocket Boy, the studio behind MindsEye. If you haven't heard much about this title, that's because it launched and then it disappeared because things fell apart really quickly. Builder Rocket Boy was founded by Leslie Benzies, a key figure behind the success of past Grand Theft Auto games. Hopes were high for his new studio and their debut project, MindsEye. But now, just weeks after launch, the game is already being considered one of the most troubled releases in recent memory. Recently, Benzies reportedly addressed his team for the first time since the game's release, according to a report from IGN. During a brief video call, he blamed the studio's problems on what he described as internal and external saboteurs. That's a pretty heavy accusation. It's not the first time something like this has been suggested either. Just last month, co-CEO Mark Gerhard made similar claims, suggesting that there was a deliberate effort by some people to discredit the studio and trash the game's reputation. But even if there was some kind of behind-the-scenes drama, many of the issues with MindsEye seems to come from within. The game was plagued by technical problems, clunky gameplay, and general lack of polish. That's not something a few bad reviews or online trolls could cause on their own. And now things are getting even worse. About 300 employees at Builder Rocket Boy and its recently acquired sister studio Playfusion have reportedly received at-risk notices. That's corporate speak for your job might be on the chopping block. It paints a bleak picture for what's going on inside the company. The problem started before the game even launched, with 2 top executives leaving the company just days ahead of release. That's almost a red flag everywhere else in industry. Combine that with a game that was clearly rushed out the door, and it's no surprise things have spiraled out of control. There's a lot of talk of relaunching MindsEye at some point, but it's hard to imagine how that would play out, especially if the team is downsized and morale is low. And let's not forget the damage that's already been done to the studio and this game. Relaunching a game is tough under any circumstances, but doing so in the middle of layoffs and internal chaos, well, that's just absolutely suicidal. It's a mountain to climb right now. For Builder Rocket Boy, it's a reminder that launching a big game in today's world is a huge risk, and if things go wrong, it can bring an entire studio to the brink. I've already talked about MindsEye at length and how I think it's probably one of the biggest cons in modern gaming. A completely unplayable game on launch, sold for cash, and so many people still haven't had their cash back, including me. That, as far as I'm concerned, is daylight robbery. Guys, do you think MindsEye has any chance of recovering after such a rocky launch, even if they did supposedly relaunch the game? Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments about the content discussed today, and I'll catch you on the next video.